The call for help echoes through the stars. Distress signal echoed through the void of space, carrying the desperate cries of the alien race known as the Eliari. Once a peaceful species, known for their deep connection to nature and harmony, they now faced annihilation. Their shimmering emerald cities burned under the merciless assault of the Vakari, a brutal, expansionist alien empire that left only ashes in its wake. Aboard the Earth Alliance vessel Resolute Dawn, Commander Alec Thorne stared at the transmission in silence. The Vakari had always kept to the edge of known space, but their sudden aggression toward the Eliari meant something had changed. Humanity could not stand idle. Thorne was no diplomat, no philosopher, he was a soldier. And to him, the Vakari threat was a challenge that demanded a human response. Thorne wasn't alone in this belief. President Amina Velasquez of the United Earth Council had already called for an emergency session. Humanity had grown strong since its early spacefaring days. The old Earth wars were behind them, and they had united not for conquest, but for survival and progress. Now, they were being tested once more. General Hada Nishimura of the Earth Defense Fleet pounded his fist on the council table. If we wait for the Vakari to come to us, it will be too late. We must meet them head-on. We must defend the Eliari just for their survival. But 4 hours, within hours, the Resolute Dawn, a sleek battleship equipped with humanity's most advanced air tactical systems and a fusion core rail cannon, was en route to Eliari space. Alongside it flew 3 cruisers and 2 support carriers. It wasn't a full-scale war fleet, but it was enough to send a message. Thorne stood before his crew, his voice firm but passionate. We are not just fighting for another species today. We are showing the galaxy what it means to be human, what it means to resist tyranny. If we win, we inspire. If we fall standing. As they entered Eliari space, the destruction was evident. Massive crystal towers lay shattered across scorched ground. Eliari refugee vessels floated helplessly, their soft, bioengineered hulls torn open by Vakari weapons. Commander Thorne gave the order. Deploy drones. Clear the path for survivors. No more innocents die today. Suddenly, the Vakari struck. Sleek, black ships dropped from orbit like shadows, their weapons charging in a silent threat. Thorne's tactical AI, Orion, calculated a near impossible engagement ratio. But Thorne only smiled. Let's show them what impossible means to a human. The first volley rocked the Resolute Dawn, but the Earth fleet answered with brutal precision. Human railguns pierced Vakari's shielding with kinetic force. Fighters darted between enemy ships, using erratic maneuvers inspired by Earth's chaotic animal patterns, something Vakari A could not easily track. The Eliari watched from afar, stunned. No one had ever pushed back the Vakari. No one had dared. Yet here were humans, fighting not just for their own kind, but for strangers, with grit, with strategy, with stubborn, relentless fire. Commander Thorne's voice rang through the battle net. Don't give them an inch. Humanity stands here. And here, we will not fall. Humanity's stand among the stars. The battlefield was chaos. Vakari ships sliced through space like silver knives, their energy lances streaking across the black void. But humanity didn't flinch. The Resolute Dawn roared forward, flanked by the Earth fleet, its hull bristling with weapon ports and glowing with the pulse of life and defiance. Commander Alec Thorne gripped the edge of the command console, his jaw clenched. Around him, his crew worked with laser precision. Tactical Officer Lena Mercer relayed enemy formations, while Chief Engineer Rowan Dev tapped furiously at diagnostic panels, rerouting power to the forward shields. Vakari formation breaking starboard. Mercer called out. They're targeting our support carrier. Thorne didn't hesitate. Divert Omega Squadron to intercept. Bring the Orion Fang into flanking position. Push them back. The ship shuddered again as another energy blast grazed the hull. Sparks danced across the deck. On the screen, the Vakari flagship loomed, a jagged monstrosity of black steel and red plasma, shaped more like a beast than a vessel. It radiated power and menace, a symbol of domination. But humans were not prey. On board that flagship, High Commander Jaya of the Vakari watched with narrowed eyes. The humans were not fighting like other species. They didn't retreat, didn't beg, didn't freeze in fear. They adapted, they improvised, they struck back with strategies that defied logical prediction. Where others crumbled under Vakari might, humanity rose with defiance. This resistance is unnatural, Jaya muttered. These creatures burn with something we've not seen before. Humanity called it resolve. Down below on the surface of Elia Prime, the Eliari survivors gathered around projection screens, showing the battle overhead. Children clutched the hands of their elders, watching as the foreign warriors in metal ships fought to protect them. Never before had another race spilled blood for the Eliari. It was unthinkable. Elder Shawnally, the leader of the Eliari Council, stood silently beside the others. They are unlike any species we've known, she whispered. They bleed for us. They break themselves to protect us. Why? Beside her, a young Eliari girl asked, will they win? The elder stared at the sky, tears glistening in her luminous eyes. If willpower wins wars, child. They already have. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, Thorn took a moment between orders to speak with Earth Defense Command. His message was brief, but filled with iron. We're holding the line. But the Vakari won't stop unless we make them bleed. We need backup. We need reinforcements from deep space. That call echoed back home, and Earth answered. Thousands of light years away, the Dauntless Warden, flagship of the Second Earth Armada, initiated a warp jump. Admiral Alina Ward, a legend of the Mars conflicts, stood ready to join the battle. Humanity had committed. Meanwhile, inside the Resolute Dawn's war chamber, tactical aid projected holographic maps and simulations. The AI's smooth voice crackled, suggesting counter-offensive strike to weaken Vakari morale. Predictive models indicate an 11% chance of causing retreat. Only 11, Thorn said, smirking. Good odds. The counter-attack plan was bold, dangerous even by human standards. But humanity never played it safe when the stakes were survival. A squadron of stealth corvettes, known as Shadow Flame, was dispatched behind enemy lines. Their mission, plant pulse disruptors near the Vakari command nodes orbiting Elia Prime. If successful, it would sever Vakari fleet coordination and give the Earthships a window to strike. Leading the Shadow Flame squad was Captain Ren Navarro, a quiet, brilliant tactician with a reputation for doing the impossible. As her corvette pierced through the shadows of wrecked debris fields, she muttered into the comm, "This is for the cities they burned. For the ones they thought were too small to matter." The Vakari didn't even see the humans coming. Pulse disruptors deployed. System interference surged through Vakari frequencies. Chaos erupted among the enemy. On the Resolute Dawn, Orion's voice changed pitch. Signal disruption confirmed. Vakari formation destabilizing. Now, Thorn shouted. Hit them hard. Rail cannons fired. Plasma torpedoes ignited space with fire. The Earth fleet surged forward, with every engine screaming. Breaking through the confusion like a blade, Vakari ships began to fall. One by one. High Commander Jaya's flagship reeled under the unexpected blow. The aliens' mandibles clicked with disbelief. This wasn't just resistance, it was humiliation. "We underestimated them," Jaya hissed. "These humans, they are not like the others. They do not break." Back on the Eliari surface, hope fled. The skies no longer belonged to the invaders. For the first time in weeks, the people felt the warmth of something other than fire-belief. As the Earth fleet drove the Vakari back, Commander Thorn stood tall among the chaos, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead, eyes locked on the stars. "We're not done," he whispered. "Not until every last one of them is gone from this sky." Humanity had just arrived on the galactic stage, and they had come not to kneel but to lead. Vakari retaliation and the human defiance darkness returned to the edge of Eliari space. Where moments ago the stars flickered with fire and fury, now silence pressed down like a shroud. Human warships floated among the wreckage of fallen Vakari vessels, their hulls scorched, their crews weary but alive. The surprise disruption had worked. Humanity had pushed back a force that seemed invincible, but the victory was not complete. Commander Alec Thorne stood quietly on the observation deck of the Resolute Dawn, eyes fixed on a drifting Vakari cruiser that spun slowly in zero gravity. Flames licked from its ruptured engines. Inside it, monsters' pride had died. And yet Thorne knew monsters didn't die that easily. Tactical readouts coming in, reported Lena Mercer. Vakari reinforcements inbound, multiple warp signatures, bigger ships. Heavier class. He turned, silent, for a moment, then nodded. They're not retreating. They're regrouping, back in Earth orbit. The second Earth Armada was already in transit. Admiral Alina Ward, a woman known for both her strategic brilliance and terrifying calm, had mobilized every available capital-class ship. Her command was simple: support Resolute Dawn and prevent the Vakari from gaining a foothold anywhere near Allied space, but time was against them. Elsewhere, in the command center of the Vakari fleet's second wave, Supreme Strategist Kurjun glared at projections of human fleet maneuvers. Unlike Jaya, Kurjun was not driven by pride. He was methodical, cold, efficient. Humans adapt too quickly, he said to his subordinate. They should not have struck our node clusters. That knowledge was outside their expected scope. This suggests infiltration. The subordinate, younger Vakari named Jelfuk, hissed. They think like predators. They don't follow rules. No, Kurjun said. They break them. Kurjun began orchestrating a counter-strategy, one that had only been used against technologically superior enemies. His plan: to unleash Mind Scream Protocol, a psychic warfare system meant to fracture coordination among biological species. Back on Resolute Dawn, Navigator Cory Nguyen noticed a fluctuation in local space. We've got anomalous sensor ghosts, like ... like static in the stars. Then it hit. A wave of psychic interference washed over the fleet like an invisible tide. The crew staggered. Some screamed, others fell. Even Commander Thorne pressed his fingers to his temples, gritting his teeth against the invisible pressure. Orion! Thorne shouted, voice strained. What the hell is this? The AI, though unaffected, responded with urgency. Unprecedented. Interference detected. Vakari psychic disruption field in effect. Estimated source: their command ship. Crew operating at reduced efficiency. Recommend immediate countermeasures. In the medbay, Dr. Lisette Ray scrambled to inject normal dampeners into affected crew. She worked like a machine, hands steady, eyes blazing. Don't let it in, she shouted to a medic struggling against a seizure. It's not real, it's pressure. Fight it. But the effects were worsening. Humans weren't equipped for psychic warfare. Not yet. In the communications room, a burst of static gave way to a voice faint. Female. This is Captain Yara Solis, Science Division, Nightingale. We've encountered Vakari mental wave weapons before. I have a theory, but we'll need access to your core arrays. Thorne didn't hesitate. You have it. Whatever you need. Solas worked quickly, uploading a neuro-patterned counterwave signal into Orion's systems. It was experimental, part guesswork, part genius, but it was the only shot they had. When the modified signal pulsed through the Resolute Dawn, the pressure lifted, eyes cleared, voices steadied. The bridge crew gasped, as if breaking water. Reboot cognitive coordination, Thorne ordered. Get us back in the fight. The Vakari had struck hard, but humans learned faster. That was their gift. With recovered focus, the fleet began a controlled fallback to regroup with Admiral Ward's incoming reinforcements. But even in retreat, humans fought like devils. The Vakari pressed the advantage, firing relentlessly. But every time they moved to flank, Earth ships repositioned like dancers in a deadly ballet. Guided by instinct and grit. In the Shadow Flame Squadron, Captain Ren Navarro's stealth ship had survived the psychic onslaught by shielding her crew in Noro sleep pods. Now she stalked the edge of the battle, eyes fixed on the Vakari command ship. "We end this," she said through grit teeth. Marking enemy flagship coordinates, initiating Project Skyfang. Skyfang was humanity's most forbidden weapon, a compressed singularity warhead, developed not for conquest but for final defense. Its use had never been approved. Until now. Navarro didn't hesitate. She deployed the payload and warped away. The Skyfang detonated. For a moment, space folded like torn fabric. Light vanished. Time shivered. The shockwave hit like a god's hammer. The Vakari command ship broke apart in silence, its hull collapsing into itself, pulled into a singularity no ship could escape. The mind screen protocol ended, and with it, the tide turned again. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, silence reigned. Then a cheer. It rolled through the ship, thunder defiance, furious, joyful. Commander Thorne raised his voice above the noise. "This war isn't over," he shouted. "But today we reminded the galaxy who we are. We are humanity, and we don't back down." Across the stars, other alien civilizations watched, some in fear, others in awe, because the Vakari had made a mistake. They had awakened the one species that refused to kneel. A broken alliance, and the spark of rebellion. Debris of the Vakari command ships still drifted like ash across the void. What had once been an indomitable fortress was now a silent, crumpled tomb. Humanity had struck a blow no one thought possible, and the galaxy was watching. But victory, however glorious, rarely came without consequence. On the surface of Elia Prime, the Eliari stood in solemn reverence, staring up at a sky that had been lit with death and fire. The elders convened in sacred circle, whispering their doubts and fears. Elder Shawnlee's voice broke through the murmurs. "They fight like fire. Brilliant, destructive. Will they burn the Vakari alone, or everything in their path?" Her question went unanswered. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of Vakari space, Supreme Strategist Kurjan floated in a gravity-null chamber, his limbs coiled like steel cables. He had survived the singularity blast, barely. The humans had exposed a weakness. The Vakari had never prepared for emotional warfare. Not just tactics, not brute force. They wielded unpredictability like a blade. They broke the scream. He hissed into the void. They shattered the fear. He sent new orders. Not just for retaliation but for annihilation. The Vakari would not be defeated again. Not by humans, not by anyone. Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, the crew was silent. The adrenaline of battle had faded. Now came the weight of choices made and lives lost. Over 100 Earth officers and soldiers had perished during the mind screams, onslaught, dozens more during the counterattack. In the quiet of the medbay, Dr. Lisette Ray sat beside a young soldier, barely 20, wrapped in biofoam and pain suppressors. He had volunteered for the Shadow Flame mission and returned with radiation, burns and shredded lungs. His lips barely moved. "Did we win?" he asked. She nodded. "Fighting back tears. You helped make it happen." Commander Alec Thorne walked through the corridors with heavy steps. He had won a battle, but every corridor held ghosts now, faces he knew, voices he would never hear again. In the war chamber, a new call came through from Admiral Alina Ward, now only a few hours out with reinforcements. Her image flickered to life, stern and weathered. "You disobeyed standing orders," she said flatly. Thorne didn't flinch. "I acted when the moment called for it. You authorized Skyfang. I ended a war before it could devour us." There was silence. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Then prepare for the next one." Ward had brought more than just ships. She had brought news. Political chaos was spreading through the galaxy. The Vakari defeat had inspired more than awe. It had sparked rebellion across dozens of systems under Vakari control. Small pockets of resistance had ignited. Oppressed species, long broken, were daring to rise again. Word of humanity's stand had spread like wildfire. "They're calling you the Flameburn," Admiral Ward said. "The ones who fight with fire and do not fall, but flames draw eyes and fear." Not all species welcomed humanity's rise. Back on Earth, the United Earth Council was facing pressure from the Galactic Compact and an easy coalition of neutral worlds and former Vakari allies. They demanded an inquiry. They feared humanity's strength, even as they admired it. President Amina Velasquez stood before them, firm. "You fear us, because we refuse to bow. Because we struck back when others would run. We are not conquerors, we are protectors. But if you threaten us, if you threaten our allies, we will defend them with everything we are." Her words were bold, and they lit another fuse dot in a hidden Vakari system. Kurjan was building something ancient, the Leviathan Core, a forgotten weapon designed during the Old Wars. It wasn't just destructive. It rewrote matter, warped time. It was banned, even by Vakari standards. But this was no longer a war of laws. It was extinction or dominance. Kurjan activated the first stage. Space itself trembled. Back on the Resolute Dawn, a sudden ripple of energy surged through the ship. Lights flickered. Artificial gravity surged and dropped. Alarms howled. Orion's voice rang out. Massive spatial distortion detected. Gravitic pulse signature. Matches ancient Vakari tech unclassified and untested. Distance, 3 systems away. "What is it?" Thorne asked. The AIS tone was uncharacteristically uncertain. "Something wrong with space." Within minutes, the pulse had reached Elia Prime's orbit. It didn't explode or burn, it folded time subtly. Communication delays warped, sensor data twisted. Some crew reported déjà vu. Others remembered events that had never happened. Thorne clenched his fists. Whatever they've unleashed, it's beyond war. And then came the final blow. The Vakari broadcasted a universal message across every known system. Kurjan's face appeared, his voice calm, almost soothing. "You have witnessed our loss. You cheered at our pain. But you forget we are ancient, we are patient. You humans, so eager to prove yourselves, you've awoken something older than vengeance." The message ended. Orion whispered, "They've declared total extermination. Protocol, no diplomacy, no retreat, no prisoners." Thorne turned to his crew. His voice was steel. "Then they'll learn something else about humans. We don't die easy." The Leviathan stirs, and humanity answers. Stars had begun to lie. Scanners showed planets where there were none. Chronometers ticked backwards. Vessels appeared in 2 places at once, briefly. What the Vakari had unleashed with the Leviathan Core was not merely a weapon, it was a violation of reality, and the galaxy trembled. On the edge of a collapsing moon, Eliari space, a scientific vessel named the Arcus Lumina recorded the first anomaly, a time ripple that aged half their crew by 3 years. In less than 3 seconds, the other half didn't age at all. One engineer simply vanished, not died, vanished. Every trace of her erased from logs and minds except for one cryptic note on her console. "It's inside time now." At Earth Defense Command, data scientists, historians, and theoretical physicists worked around the clock. Admiral Alina Ward had declared a state of full mobilization. President Amina Velasquez authorized Earth's highest emergency protocol, Directive Genesis, the plan for planetary defense and interstellar coordination in the event of a civilization-ending threat. Commander Alec Thorne, now stationed at a high-orbit citadel called Bastion Red, stood before a war map glowing with distress beacons. Dozens of former Vakari colonies had gone dark, not attacked, not destroyed. Simply gone. Space folded in on itself. No debris, no escape pods. No answers. Dr. Yara Solis, the scientist who had helped stop the Mind Scream protocol, had a theory world, but not unthinkable. "They're not just attacking matter," she explained. "They're bending causality, changing what is and was. This is no longer a war of weapons. It's a war on truth itself." Thorne's voice was quiet, but certain. Then let's remind them that truth fights back. Humanity's strength had never been its technology alone. It had always been the ability to adapt fast, creatively, and collectively. Across the Terran colonies, engineers retrofitted warp drives to operate on variable time loops, pilots trained in partial light, delays, learning to fly in a world where seconds could lie. AI systems like Orion were rewritten to operate on redundant paradox engines processing timelines in multi-phase memory threads. The species that once looked up at the stars with wonder was now preparing to defend reality itself. But the war wasn't theirs alone anymore. In the underground archives of the Eliari, Elder Shawnley uncovered ancient relics, artifacts said to belong to the first harmonics, a race believed to be extinct for 10 million years. The Eliari had always dismissed the legends as metaphor, but one relic hummed when exposed to the Leviathan distortion. It pulsed not in response to space, but to will. She reached out to Thorn through secure channel. Our ancestors were not passive, she said. They once fought the same darkness. We hid the truth out of shame. But if we give you this, it may help you reach beyond what even machines understand. The artifact was sent aboard a diplomatic shuttle escorted by Earth and Eliari vessels. It arrived at Bastion Red glowing with a rhythm that matched the human heart rate. Orion, examining it, commented in awe. This device appears to interface with living neurological fields. It may allow reality stabilization based on conscious focus, I believe. It fights lies with belief, Dr. Solus whispered. It's empathy-based tech. If the Leviathan core was rewriting existence through sheer domination, then this relic named the Harmonic Seed was humanity's first hope to resist not with force, but with meaning. Thorn called a war council. Eliari, humans, and a new addition, the Malari, a crystalline insectoid species long thought to be under Vakari control, joined the circle. They had rebelled after witnessing humanity's defiance, and offered their star-splitting pulse matrices for alliance. The plan was formed. Operation Vigil Flame. 3 strike arms would form the counter-offensive, a diversionary fleet to draw out Vakari forward battalions, a stealth group to infiltrate the Leviathan core's anchoring systems, and the third, most dangerous mission. A small elite crew would carry the Harmonic Seed into the core's causality engine itself. They would not destroy it. They would overwrite it with human memory, emotion, truth, the one force the Vakari couldn't calculate. Commander Thorn volunteered to lead that team. No AI, no remote drones, he said. It has to be lived. It has to be felt. The seed reacts to human will, not command code. He handpicked his crew. Dr. Solus, for her neural comprehension. Engineer Rowan Dev, for his unpredictable problem-solving. Sergeant Ilana Brooke, for her unparalleled combat reflexes honed in zero-G. Eliari Sia Valanth, who could detect causality shifts through her mind alone. As their ship, the Oathkeeper, prepared for launch, the galaxy held its breath. Messages flooded from hundreds of worlds, some allies, some enemies, but all watching. If they fail, said a Yulari diplomat, there will be no future. No past, only the Vakari's version of everything. On the Oathkeeper's bridge, Thorn looked out into the warping stars. His voice echoed through the comms to every fleet, every allied species, every child who would remember this day. We are not gods. We are not perfect, but we are human. We learn, we care. And above all, we choose our own story. Engines ignited. The mission began. Into broken space, the Oathkeeper leapt, carrying the hope of a universe not yet ready to be rewritten. Inside the Leviathan core, memory against madness, there was no sensation of movement as the Oathkeeper crossed into the Leviathan's reach. No turbulence, no light, no sound. One moment the stars shimmered. The next, they were simply gone, replaced by an ever-shifting sky of impossible shapes and colors that didn't exist in any known spectrum. A place between places, a fracture in the fabric of everything. Inside the bridge, alarms stayed silent. Instruments failed, time ceased. To behave, Sergeant Ilana Brooke floated in her harness, staring at her wrist chrono. It blinked backwards, then forward, then froze entirely. "We've entered the unweave," said Sia Valanth, her voice eerily calm. Her translucent skin glowed faintly, reacting to the space around her. Reality here bends to perception, memory, intention. Do not doubt yourselves, Rowan. Dev laughed nervously. Great, so if I imagine we're all fish, do we drown or start flopping? Nobody answered. It was a serious question. Dr. Yara Solas activated the harmonic seed and placed it at the center of the ship's neural array. The artifact pulsed with soft light, warm, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. It anchored them. It remembered who they were. Commander Alec Thorne stood at the center of the bridge, looking through the panoramic front screen. There was something forming ahead, a vast, skeletal construct of black metal tendrils, spiraling endlessly into themselves. It wasn't built, it had grown, as if the laws of logic had rotted and birthed something ancient and hungry. "That's the core," Solas whispered. "It's not just powering the Leviathan weapon. It is the Leviathan, Orion, partially functioning via a multi-threaded backup processor," chimed in. "Causality distortion increasing. Warning, crew coherence is degrading. Suggest immediate reinforcement through memory loops. Memory loops." Thorne asked. The AI explained. "Anchor your thoughts to powerful memories, personal experiences, loved ones, your sense of self. Otherwise, this place will overwrite you." And then it began. Each crew member started hearing voices. Not overcomes inside their minds. Their own voices. Family, friends, some long dead. Thorne heard his father, a gruff colonist who had died during the Mars terraform riots. "You were always too stubborn for your own good," the voice echoed. "Let someone else be the hero this time." He shook it off. "I'm not here to be a hero. I'm here to make sure there's still a here." Ilana Brooke saw flashes of a war she had never fought. A ruined earth, children hiding in rubble. She smelled fire, heard screams. "These aren't memories," she growled. "They're fakes, projections, trying to rewrite us." Valanth nodded. "The Leviathan tests your narrative thread. If you accept it, you cease to be. Outside the ship, the void began to bend around a singular point, a massive obsidian eye bedded in the core structure. It opened and looked at them. Rowan cursed. "It's aware. It sees us." Suddenly, the ship jerked. Power flickered. Half the systems went dark. A strange pattern appeared on the main screen, symbols shifting to faster read. The air grew cold. Thorne ran to the control panel. "What happened?" Solas looked up from the seed. "We've been breached." Something got inside the ship. Footsteps echoed from the lower decks. Heavy, deliberate. Ilana grabbed her weapon and moved fast. She descended into the corridors, scanning every shadow. Lights flickered, except there were no lights anymore. In the dark, she saw movement. "Show yourself." A figure emerged, tall, humanoid, but wrong. Its skin shimmered with overlapping timelines, like it existed in more than one moment at once. It was familiar. To familiar. It wore her face. "I am what you might become," it said. "If you choose survival over self, if you give in to function, abandon emotion." Ilana raised her rifle. "Nice try. I've already chosen who I am." The shadow lunged. A pulse rang out. The harmonic seed, back on the bridge, reacted, flaring brighter. The illusion dissolved. Ilana returned, shaken but intact. "It's projecting what we could be. Should be, according to its logic." Thorne nodded. "We don't play by its logic. We write our own." The harmonic seed was now resonating rapidly, interacting directly with the shifting core ahead. Solas began uplinking it to the Leviathan's heart. "It's working," she said. "But we need to get closer within the center field." "That meant leaving the ship." Thorne volunteered. "I'll take the seed in myself." "No," Solas said. "It has to be someone whose memory is already stabilized through collective emotion. Someone the crew is anchored to." Everyone looked at her. You mean, me? She nodded. You're not just the commander. You're the story the galaxy is believing in right now. That belief matters here. Thorn took the seed and entered the drop chamber. Suit sealed, mind focused. As he floated toward the eye of the Leviathan, space trembled around him. The core pulsed with dark energy, shifting in size, form, and time with every blink. He saw visions of failure, Earth burning, humanity enslaved, the Eliari extinct. But he held on to something else. A memory. His younger sister, playing violin on the edge of their home colony's green hills, smiling without worrying. That moment, that music, that truth. I am Alec Thorn, he said into the void, son of Earth, commander of Resolute Dawn. And this is not your story to tell. The seed ignited in his hands. A sound rippled out, not a weapon's blast, but a song, pure, resonant, familiar. Human. The Leviathan recoiled. Cracks formed in the structure. The ice split in half. Lights turned to colors the human brain could barely comprehend. Then, a voice echoed through the void. Not Vakari. Not AI. A traitor. Commander, it said. I'm sorry. It was Seer Valanth's voice broadcasting from the bridge. They offered me a timeline where the Eliari survived. I took it. The seed pulsed violently in Thorn's hands. The betrayal destabilized it. No, don't let it rewrite. You, Solus shouted, hold the memory. Thorn's eyes closed. He held on to the violin, the green hills, his crew. His choice. And the seed flared once more, brighter than ever. As space collapsed around him, he fell forward, toward the final moment. The story humanity refused to forget her was no up or down inside the Leviathan core, only the spinning chaos of rewritten laws. Space fractured like glass, time folded in on itself. And in the middle of it all, Alec Thorn drifted alone, the harmonic seed pulsing in his hands like a dying star refusing to fade. His body was broken, suit integrity failing, his vision blurred by the paradox pressure. The betrayal from Seer Valanth cut deeper than the void around him. She had been their bridge to the Eliari, their empathic anchor, and she had sold them out for a promise, a timeline where her people lived. But Thorn wasn't angry. He understood, even now, as the seed tried to collapse under the weight of that emotional wound. He didn't fight her memory. He embraced it. She was afraid. He whispered into the darkness. She chose safety. I choose truth. The harmonic seed responded. Its pulse stabilized. The glow deepened, rich and warm, not cold like logic, but alive like memory. The Leviathan reeled. In every direction. The core's flesh peeled back like molten steel, exposing a second layer, something ancient and buried, a massive neural web of crystallized thoughts. Living memories harvested from entire species. Most had no voice left. But the seed called out to them. And they remembered. The cries of the Ulari, silenced long ago. The songs of the Malari, broken, in crystalline prisons. The poetry of the Serenari, twisted into Vakari war chants. All of them began to rise. Not in violence. In remembrance. The seed wasn't a weapon. It was a story, a collective memory. And stories had power. On board the Oathkeeper, Yara Solas wept. She could feel it now. The network of minds reconnecting. Forgotten species whispering their truths back into existence. Even Orion, the AI, paused in its operations. I am remembering subroutines I did not have, it said. Outside. The Vakari fleet arrived. Thousands of ships, bristling with gravity torches and time ashes. They had come to protect the core, to ensure it finished overwriting the galaxy into the Vakari vision. But the human fleet was already waiting. Admiral Alina Ward stood aboard the dauntless Warden, staring down the impossible odds. Reinforcements had come. Ships from Earth, Mars, Titan, and even fringe colonies once abandoned. The Eliari, shamed by Valanth's betrayal, had returned in force, the ships ablaze with fury. The Malari lit up the dark like fireflies, made of glass and rage. This is where we make our stand, Ward said. Not just for Earth, not just for today, but for the right to choose our own story. The battle began. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't clean. It was desperate. Explosions bloomed across space like dying suns. Entire cruisers vanished mid-warp. Vakari dreadnoughts tore through human formations with wave-slicing torpedoes. But the humans adapted. They flanked. They feinted. They refused to break. On the Oathkeeper, Rowan Dev rerouted the ship's last reserve power into the communication core. We're going to beam the seed's resonance across the entire fleet, he said. Let them hear what Alec is doing. Let them feel it. A signal spread. A soul made of memory and defiance. A pulse of human thought wrapped in the echoes of every forgotten species. Pilots felt their hearts sink with it. Gunners found focus. Soldiers wept mid-battle, but fought harder. Even some Vakari paused. In the Leviathan core, Thorn reached the inner chamber, a sphere of impossible gravity. At the center was a throne of bone and time, and on it sat Kurjan, his form warped and ancient. You cannot win, the Vakari strategist said. We control the timelines now. We are the future. No, Thorn said. You're just a footnote. Kurjan rose, immense and terrible. Then die with your species' delusions. Thorn did not answer. He placed the harmonic seed into the throne itself, and everything stopped. All across the battlefield, ships froze mid-fire. Debris hung suspended. Light refused to move. For one moment, time obeyed no one. Then, the seed bloomed. Not in fire. In memory. Images burst from it. Not holograms, not projections, but realities. A boy hugging his father on a Martian sunrise. An Eliari artist painting the moons. A Malari swarm rebuilding a shattered reef world. Every race. Every lost voice. The Leviathan shuddered. It tried to erase the seed, but it couldn't, because the story had already been told, with a sound like all galaxies exhaling at once. The Leviathan cracked open. Vakari ships lost power. Their dreadnoughts fell from the sky like metal rain. Kurjan screamed, not in fear, but in disbelief. This is not science. No, Thorn whispered from within the throne. It's humanity. The Leviathan exploded in a silent burst of color, time, and song. The waves rippled through space, healing rifts, sealing paradox wounds, and restoring what had been erased. The war was over, but Alec Thorn was gone. No body, no signal. Only the seed remained, floating, humming softly. Later, they found his last words encoded in its pulse. If you're hearing this, we made it. And if we made it, it means we chose to remember who we were. Not because we were perfect, but because we were real. And real things leave marks across the galaxy. Species rebuilt. The Vakari, fractured and leaderless, retreated into silence. The Eliari rejoined the compact. The Malari became the keepers of the seed, and humanity, they became the memory holders of the stars. Years later, in a classroom on a distant moon, a young girl asked her teacher, "Did Alec Thorn die?" The teacher smiled and replied, "No, he became part of the story, and as long as we tell it, he lives."